What if the future of travel wasn't just about going further, but also going deeper? Not just about chasing new places, but rediscovering meaning exactly where we are. In a world where destinations are increasingly crowded, brands are scrambling to stay relevant, and travelers are yearning for more than just pretty views. What does it really mean to design experiences that nourish the traveler's soul as well as the planet? Today's guest is Whitney Scott, strategist, storyteller, and co-founder of Walden Insights. She helps hospitality brands and visionaries navigate towards what she calls regenerative intelligence, a way of thinking, creating, and leading, all rooted in place, people, and purpose. In this conversation, we explore why luxury is being redefined, how businesses can shift towards more regenerative models that bring greater longevity and profits, and why the next big thing in travel might actually be something far more unexpected and timeless than you think. If you've ever wondered how to build a brand that feels alive, aligned, and full of purpose, this is the episode for you. Welcome to the Glamping Americas podcast, the place for inspiration about the business of upscale camping, glamping, and luxury outdoor guest accommodations. I'm Sarah Riley from the Glamping Academy, and I'm working with my friends at the Glamping Show Americas to share everything you need to know about new trends, events, business models, and investment potential in the rapidly growing world of luxury camping that delivers an experience. Interest in this industry is exploding, so if you want to be the first to find out what's hot and what's not, subscribe here and check out the show notes for more exciting news and links. And be sure to add the next Glamping Show Americas to your calendar for the 30th of September to the 1st of October 2025 near Denver, Colorado. I can't wait. Imagine this, owning a luxury outdoor resort that's fully designed, built and guest ready in as little as 200 days. At Harmony Domes, they don't just create world-class geodesic domes, log cabins and tiny homes. They deliver complete turnkey luxury outdoor resorts. They handle everything: land planning, permits, custom accommodations design, production, installation, full interior staging, and yes, even hospitality management after you open. You bring the vision, they bring the finished product. Start your resort journey at the Glamping Show booth 1212 on Tuesday the 30th of September or today at harmonydomes.com. Hey there and welcome back. If you're in the world of glamping, hosting events, or just dreaming about launching your own unique outdoor stay, there's one event you absolutely need on your radar right now. The Glamping Show Americas in Colorado, USA. This is more than a trade show. It's where our industry comes alive once a year. Imagine walking through rows of beautifully crafted glamping structures, stepping inside luxury tents, domes, safari lodges, and more. Feeling the material, comparing layouts, understanding the sizes, and how it might look on your land, and having real conversations with the manufacturers behind them. It's your chance to get hands-on, ask the questions that matter, and grab exclusive show deals you won't find anywhere else. And then there's the conference, packed with industry experts from across the Americas and around the world, all sharing practical insights to help you start, grow, and scale a successful glamping business. Whether you're just getting started or ready to level up, this is where you'll find the inspiration and the know-how. This is only a fraction of what we'll be covering, but we'll be looking at glamping industry trends and insights with data-driven forecasts on guest behavior, market opportunities, and revenue growth. We'll also be talking about starting and scaling a glamping business with real-world stories, startup strategies, and lessons from new and seasoned operators, including Ferncrest, Balance Farm, Folly Collection, Bolt Farm, Live Oak Lake, Lagon Retreat, Ozark Mountain Adventure, and Onera. Yes, you asked for case studies, and this year we've delivered. We'll also be sharing marketing techniques that work with an expert panel on lead generation, guest attraction, social media growth, and direct bookings. And what about smart amenities your customers want and how to tailor the guest experience? It's all there for you this year. And innovations in sustainability and technology, especially AI, which has really taken off this year. This is all about blending eco design, automation, and smart systems for efficient operations. And then we'll be talking about alternative revenue streams, especially if you're finding it hard to finance your project. We'll also be covering retreat events and wellness experiences. But what about building a standout brand with storytelling, partnerships, and creating memorable experiences that drive loyalty? We'll also be looking at creative financing options and very unique exit strategies, plus much, much more. And on the topic of exit strategies, this year there is something epic happening. In partnership with the American Glamping Association, an entire glamping resort, the Utopian in Dripping Springs, Texas, is being raffled off. Yes, seriously. One lucky raffle entrant is going to walk away with an entire ownership of a luxury, ready to run glamping resort. The winner will be announced live at the show. So the question is, now the industry is getting a bit older and people are both buying and selling their businesses, could this be the start of a new exit strategy trend in our industry? Would you ever raffle off your glamping business instead of selling it? It's bold, it's creative, and it's the kind of energy and innovation you can expect at the Glamping Show Americas. So head on over to glampingshow.us to find out more, plan your visit, and make sure you're there when it all unfolds. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Whitney, so amazing that you are here having a chat with me today because we've had some really soulful conversations in Greece when we met there, but we've also met at the Glamping Show in America. And I know that you've got a heap of knowledge. Your business focuses on understanding trends of the consumer and of an industry. And it's really inspirational and just awe-inspiring, the information that you've got and you share on an industry which over time historically has been little known because very few people have done some good in-depth studies on the industry. So can you give a little bit of an overview about what you do with Walden Insights and your area of speciality, let's say?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me. And that's such a kind introduction. Walden is a passion project. I used to work for a big data company for a government contractor. There, I learned the value of data, what data really means to a business and just to people in general. And one of the things was how data can affect things in real time. And like without data, we're operating on perspectives, assumptions, and it can really bring change. But with that, that data has to be in front of us at the right time. And we also have to be open to accepting that data can change our beliefs, our trajectories, our strategies. And then from that job, I came into the outdoor industry where I was lucky enough to work at Campgrounds of America. I was their chief marketing officer. I was able to be on the team that built Terramore and was the chief operating officer for that brand as it came into its first years of operations. And then before leaving the senior vice president of strategy, where I was looking at horizon line strategy for that company. And I really got in depth in the outdoor industry from the perspective of glamping and camping and outdoor recreation. And I was looking at a lot of research and data and really learned that the outdoor industry at large is kind of a data desert. A lot of data doesn't exist, largely because the outdoors is the outdoors. There's not a lot of transactions. You literally the last piece of data sometimes that we have from a recreation perspective is when we purchase a backpack or something to go hiking. We don't know when people go. We don't know exactly where they go unless they're wearing like a tracker, which probably isn't publicly accessed. And so, because this data doesn't exist around the activities of the outdoors, we just don't really know a lot about the business of it. And a lot of the business of the outdoors hasn't been professionalized. It's been a lot of mom and pop, backcountry, people that are just want to be in the outdoors. And so they haven't professionalized that industry. And my co-founder and I both have backgrounds in data. My co-founder, Josh Meibert, was the president of Road Trippers, which is really a data technology looking at travel behavior. And we got together and we were just like, we would like to help outdoor businesses make better business decisions in order to really preserve the outdoors. Because if people don't know the data behind how valuable it is to us, they won't preserve it. They won't encourage sustainability and really protect what it is we enjoy so much. So we're on a quest, I guess you could say, to really build and bring to light the business of the outdoors and help the outdoor businesses make better business decisions.
I love that quest. That's a quest that I could definitely get behind. So, you describe Walden Insights as a compass for regenerative change, which is something that you help people understand the direction to go. So, for you, what does regenerative mean? And how do you help businesses, glamping businesses, brands embody beyond sustainability, which is quite a feat, it's quite a challenge. How does that work?
Yeah. So I'll start with sustainability. Sustainability means that we come in at where we are today and we just manage that so that for tomorrow, it's exactly what it was today. And while that's okay, the reality is, that's not improving. And regenerative travel is, and regenerative tourism is, can we actually build something better? Can we put things back to make, communities? And it's not just about the environment, it's about communities, it's about workforce, it's about culture. And can we actually build something better than it is today? And that's the overall goal is that, we're not just maintaining what it is today, but we actually can put back and make it better for tomorrow. I mean, that I don't know if you can sit down with anybody and say, would you want to make a better tomorrow for the people you love? And no one's going to say no, but it's hard. And so what we're trying to do is just be able to look at data and across whether it's customers or operating strategy or what you're going to be building and getting data in front of people that can help them make better decisions, things like understanding how customers are looking at sustainability. What are the things that they understand, that they prioritize? Do they know of sustainable travel and what do they value? Like we hear a lot about, there's the eco traveler, but do we really know what that means? And I would say largely no. And so that's what happens when we get greenwashing, because if we don't know, we're just kind of guessing and we're like, well, I'm just going to put up a green leaf and say, save your towels, which is a great step. But I don't think that's really improving or meeting what people are trying or people are wanting from eco resorts and things like that.
And I think we're seeing that across the board, really, where people are moving away from the idea of stuff and more towards the idea of experiences. So we saw that in many reports years ago now, saying that that's what the new generations coming in as the main players are actually saying. They'd much rather pay for an experience than buy more stuff. Maybe, paying for things like houses. No, I'd much rather pay for an experience and have this thing that I can have a soulful experience with, I suppose, and improve my life and have these memories that I can generate with my friends and family. But are you seeing those trends coming out in terms of what the data is telling you at the moment about the hospitality and travel industry?
Yeah, yes, definitely the consumer and especially in younger generations, the data definitely points to people that are seeking more experiences. Now, what those experiences are, greatly different. We're seeing a larger amount of people that are gravitating towards concerts and events, that in-person moment. We live in a digital world and yet, live live experiences are becoming more and more important. And there might be a lot of correlation between, if we are stuck in a digital environment, we crave connection and we crave in-person experiences because we know that they're real. And that's a huge conversation right now, especially with AI, is, that when we don't know what we're reading or looking at online is real, we start being like, I just want to see it in person. I just want to know that this music is really happening in front of me. I want to feel that it's real. And so that there's a lot of that. There's a, a greater want and need to get outdoors. And what I would say, in the last year in doing this work, have really come to accept that there is culturally a difference between the love of outdoors and the consideration of being outdoorsy. And for our business, there's an important understanding that you do not need to be a hiker to love the outdoors. And that's culturally something that we kind of push upon people, is there's the outdoorsy person and this is what they do, and that's not true. People love to have breakfast on a patio outdoors, and that's outdoorsy for them. And that's okay. And like, as long as we understand these trends and accept them in our space, we'll actually have much better business. It's like, how do you reach that person and tell them, yeah, I've got something for you and you don't have to hike up a mountain to get it.
I can see that too. I've had some really interesting conversations in America with people who do consider themselves to be outdoorsy, and yet their rest of the family that they aren't outdoorsy. So they have these separate holidays where the outdoorsy one goes off hiking and being outdoors and et cetera, et cetera. And the rest of the family do other things in hotels. And I said, well, why don't you go glamping? Because then the rest of your family can have the luxury of being outdoors while you do the hiking, and then you can kind of meet up in the middle. And it's like everyone then stays together. So it's bringing families together. He hadn't considered it. He completely hadn't considered it. So I think it really does open the mind to other things when people have been stuck in those silos of thinking based on history and based on
Yes.
societal pressures or the way they've been brought up or whatever it might be. But it's really interesting that what you do is that you really focus on place-based intelligence. So that's really interesting for me. And it's not something I've really heard too much about, particularly in this industry, because there's so little intelligence in this industry. There's some, but not any great amount. So where do you see the most interesting place-based intelligence, and how can hospitality businesses use this to create kind of deeper guest connections and impact?
Yeah, I mean, so in every area of the world, there's special things. And understanding the uniqueness of a place is a is an analysis of the site itself, the people that live in and around that site, the people that come to that site from a tourism perspective already, what other types of businesses or what that locality can support. So what we've done is we actually have a product that looks at kind of the complexity of a place and helps give it definition of like what is unique and special, and how can you actually turn this, what is the optimal use case for this specific place, like this lot in in exactness. And we do that through like over 120 different data sources to under, and we have algorithms in the background that look at like what, are there, special bird migrations, what's the, dark sky look like, does the tourism here or the people that come here to recreate, are they, do they over index for fishing? Do they over index for, hiking or biking? Or do they love more cultural experiences where they're more complacent maybe in their outdoor activity, but that not doesn't necessarily diminish the value of putting a glamping resort here or a campground or something like that. And so by kind of combining all of these unique data sets, we can actually bring to light the value that a very specific lot of land has and highlight the complexities of potentially building, but also the opportunities. We did one recently that had, a specific type of bird migration. And it's like you are like one place in America that actually gets to see this bird for like a month. And if you create special, bird boxes, you could actually capture some of this uniqueness, and that's a huge selling point, and how to bring pieces of stories to life. If that 120 pieces of data didn't come together like that, we wouldn't have known that story to highlight. And so that those are the things that we're trying to bring right is, yes, you need to know if you're in a floodplain. Yes, it's important to know what your competitors are, but can you do that across kind of every facet of data that's available around a specific site to kind of give you an overall picture of opportunity and what you can really expose? I mean, 20 years ago, people would potentially not even, would maybe think this bird was hazardous or, a nuisance or something like that. And yet, if we're able to utilize that data positively and build towards it, it's actually a great selling point. So it's things like that of really focusing on a sense of place and being able to highlight the uniqueness, and as well as giving the transparency of what's going to make, the business maybe have to overcome.
Mm. I like that saying, a sense of place, getting the sense of the place. And do you think that's something that business owners do enough of at the moment? Or do you think that they're more focused in on, okay, what facilities, what units, what structures, how do I need to do the utilities, all of those kind of things?
Yes, I would say, and it's hard because, I'm very trained in data. And so data is largely about, statistics and numbers. And from a numbers game, we're trained to focus on ADR, and we're trained to talk about ROI and, what is our, how do we, get our cost per key down and things like that. And that's all very valuable. But if we focus on our traditional number, and I would say maybe traditional hospitality numbers as the sole reason of, uh, being our compass, we lose so much value and heart, honestly, I believe, in bringing out what truly people are coming for, and I think people can feel that when you build for the place and really understand a piece of land. And I would say my understanding of land, even going to the eco network resort summit was eye-opening, and just like how much people can really know a piece of land and bring it to life, understanding like the magnetism of land and the soul of land and building for it. I don't have that expertise, but I can at least understand how what can be brought to light. in a place and how you can still work those traditional numbers, ADR, cost per key, and still highlight and build something unique and special. Because I think, I mean, and that's the beauty of glamping. That's why I'm attracted to it, is because it's not confined by traditional aspects of building, and it has more soul because it is tied to nature. This idea of getting more outside than inside, and how we connect to a sense of place. I mean, even if you like look at our traditional in America, some of our bigger brands, glamping brands that have come out of the woodworks being auto camp and under canvas. If you look at an under canvas first build, it kind of looks like an army camp, like it's all rows of tents, and you're kind of like, okay, like it's still better than staying at like a Best Western, and no offense to Best Western, you have your place too. But as Under Canvas has like grown into itself and understood their consumers, you can see the change in how they've architected these, most likely from customer feedback and operations, and seeing like people want a sense of privacy. They want to be built into the environment instead of kind of like placed on top of it. And like even the spirit experiences that they've optimized have been more nature-based connection. How do we bring more authenticity of nature into our overall build? Like, let's think of the land as we put our tents on top of it. And I think that's really special. And I think we should, what's great for people coming into the business now is we've kind of jumped over that hurdle. We're able to say, like, this this has value. Like, we can prove it from an ROI perspective, is if you can do this, your resort has, higher repeat business and things like that.
Mm. And I think, as you say, you're bringing more soul into it. And as we know, if you do that, then you can market it better because, okay, that's, part of the setup and the building and putting the business plan together and everything else. But you still got to think about the long-term plan of how you're going to actually market it, how you're going to actually attract guests in. And if you don't have any of that stuff, you can't. Certainly, the long-term marketing will be more of a challenge. So, and I love that example that you gave of the migrating birds and the fact that there are these hidden things that you may not even know about your own area if you're not looking at those different data sets. And that's not something that I've really considered before around those unique movements of Mother Nature that come in and out of the area. And yeah, that data is important. So you were just talking about that very focused view of a particular area. Is what kinds of things are included? So obviously there's the migrations and things. What other things do you focus on when you're looking at the area?
Yeah. So, like migration data, native species that you can highlight or optimize, like that's a huge thing. Wildlife tourism is equally as important as, just nature tourism in general. Dark skies, service, as important as the nature components are, understanding the complexity of the service ecosystem. So, understanding, are there hospitals nearby? Are there, like, what kind of transportation is, who is on these roads at what certain times? So we can understand peak seasons and operating days, snow loads, rainfall. Oh, I could just go on forever. Things like we track like Wi-Fi services, we look at utilities, things that, eh, sometimes we'll go through like a demo with someone and they'll be like, well, I can get that piece of data. And we're like, yes, you totally can. However, if you were trying to get all these pieces of data by yourself, you're going to spend weeks and potentially months trying to not only put them together, but to understand what they actually mean altogether. And
Mm.
that's the other thing, is like we've spent a lot of time trying to attribute things, and we build in market research as well. So, does this area or this tourist over index in this area for, having RVs? Are there a lot of RV registrations? Is there a lot of cross country RVing or camping or backpacking in this area? so that, potentially glamping isn't always the best choice from an outdoor business perspective. Maybe it's, a more of a mixed use campground or a roadside RV park. There's a lot of different types of outdoor businesses, even from like a recreation only perspective. Maybe it's better set up to be a day use type of outdoor recreation than it is an overnight stay because of airport traffic. We recently came across a piece of land in the lots. We do this through a product called the lot. is and so we give it a lot score, which is a land opportunity test. And we recently came across one that was right near an airport. And so from like a hospitality perspective, especially in outdoors, there's not a lot of insulation in our products in our accommodations. So it was it might best be used for a type of outdoor recreation business, like an outfitter or retail component or, a zip line adventure course, than it would be from like people are going to stay here with 30 planes going in and out every single day. It might not be the picturesque outdoor accommodation night that they were hoping for.
Yeah, and what you were saying about understanding if the land is really fit for what the person or the owner of the land or manager, whoever wants to develop it into, sometimes knowing that allows people to evolve a business plan that maybe hasn't even existed very much before or hasn't even existed ever. One such example I can think of is a site I know of in Europe that does a RV motorhome slash glamping option. So essentially, you go with your RV motorhome, you pull into your area that you're allotted. And then you also have a glamping element. So you're able to come in and out of your vehicle and use the glamping element and also the hot tub. So you're having all of that together. And so you're not necessarily going glamping just in a tent or in a cabin. You're able to stay in your own vehicle and also have that glamping experience with all the extra amenities and mod cons. So it's really interesting how just knowing the information of what suits a piece of land best because of everything around people coming in and all of that kind of good stuff just allows you to make those clever connections. So I'm a really big one for looking at the data. And
Yeah.
you've worked with boutique brands and larger destinations. And where are you seeing the most promising innovations happening right now?
I would honestly say that there's like from a global perspective, I've really been impressed at some of the actual governments coming into looking at hospitality options as a way to elevate the economy and understanding too the that I don't want to just build, mega resorts. I want to do something thoughtful and that doesn't diminish my environment. I want to really elevate the environment and the economy. So there have been quite a few countries and municipalities that are looking at outdoor hospitality as a way to boost rural economy and at the same time be at least sustainable, if not regenerative, and how we can place these things thoughtfully and create an elevated and wonderful experience for people to visit different countries, different types of environments, and boost the economy, but also help the environment at large. So it's like, how win-win-win is that in so many cases? We're looking at one right now down in Mexico that potentially is like, they're thinking of making it even lottery based. So it's that like you have to go through a raffle or a lottery to actually be able to access the outdoor hospitality facility to create exclusivity, to create a sense of like uniqueness and privacy, and but also to create elevated experiences. I think even though the national park system here in the United States, people have are still getting used to tickets and entry fee, entry access that is limited. It's really valuable because it creates a better, I think, on the when you need to get a ticket, when you've worked to get that ticket or that lottery, it creates an elevated experience, or it creates more sense of purpose. Like, I did it, I went there, and the experience was better because it wasn't overcrowded and things like that. So I've been really impressed with the innovation of really governments and public spaces elevating and activating the experience. Other types of innovation, I think thinking around the accommodation has become more and more accepted. Is that, the glamper is no longer, it's not just about the accommodation, it's about the experience itself and what needs to be brought into that overall holistic stay. I've been, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be much, it just has to be thoughtful. And
Mm.
that's been great too, because I think that creates a better market, or a healthier market, because it creates people that want to stay in the glamping environment. They're like, that was wonderful. I want to go back, or maybe try something different but similar.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the structures, as we can see, people are really attracted to the structures and doing the self-brand and the selfies, which then get shared later on Instagram and everywhere else. The customer really loves the structures, that's for sure. But that will change. The more people go glamping, the more people stay in these different structures, they'll be saying, "Oh, I've done that." So unless your site has got all of those other elements, as you said, those experiential elements on top of the structure as well as the structure, then they're going to sadly start reducing the momentum of their brand, and they're going to start seeing a little bit of a reduction in the numbers, and certainly their occupancy will potentially could go down. So as a marketer, what role do you think storytelling plays in helping people and brands shift from extractive mindsets to more regenerative mindsets?
So one, there's so much you can do. I mean, sometimes I think it's overwhelming. Like, when we talk about carbon neutrality, like, it seems overwhelming. I can't do all the things. I can't afford to do all the things. And that stops a lot of smaller operators. And I think we have labels labels sometimes hurt us a bit, because it stops people from doing small things. And it's really, starting to do small little things one at a time. When you've done one, celebrate it and kind of like think about the next one, but it doesn't have to be all the things. Storytelling is super important, because storytelling helps produce the accountability and the marketability of what was just done. So say, you do something as simple as, well, we'll stay on the bird migration, as simple as putting the bird box up to host this very special bird migration. If you don't tell people about it, if you're not, building things to create that story, while you've done something great, it's not really helping the business, nor is it helping the telling the story of, this is something that can be done other places. And this is, let's elevate this finch's story of that it flies all the way, that flies thousands of miles to go breed and to have babies, and then thousands of miles to go back in the winter. So it can survive, because it can't survive harsh climates. And so really, it's storytelling is a delivery of data. If you really think of it, is we're just storytelling is the best way to move insights and education. And we are trained, like, at our core historically, to love stories. We're told stories as children. Our ancestors they sat around the campfire and told stories. And that's how we learn the best, is when we can take complex ideas, break them down, and make them understandable. And just like that bird, if we can put up a bird box, tell the story of where it came from, what it does, why we're doing this, that not only helps us create an experience for everyone to enjoy, but they go back and what do? They tell that story. And then someone else goes, I want that experience. And then they tell that story. And it's this beautiful effect of now that finch, that bird has a platform. It has somewhere, it has an education component to it that helps regenerate and hopefully, you know, through diaspora, create learning around why we want to put up bird boxes and help that environment grow. And you can do that with almost every single thing you put inside a resort, whether it's why, we ask that you don't take 10-minute showers, well, instead of just cutting off the water, why not tell the story of, the water table underneath and how it's, over the last 10 years dropped down, and it's all up to us to enjoy this environment that we save water. Every single piece that we put in helps people also own that they've been giving back to this land. We enjoy it, so let us give back to it. And there's a sense of purpose in it. What statistically has actually been found is that the harder someone works or the more they have ownership inside of something, the more the stronger the memory and the higher they put positivity around it later. And so if we can make guests feel like they had a part in the environment and that experience. And honestly, if you can create sometimes a little tension or a little like I climbed that mountain, or I dug, I went and got the honey that I ate for breakfast.
Yeah.
That's hard work. And honestly, a lot of people don't want to do it. But when you do that and offer that experience, it becomes such a stronger memory. And how great if we can start thinking about, before we even buy the piece of property, before we build the resort, what can we bring to life that's going to create those type of memories? Because that's what we're all striving for from travel and the outdoors, is to create some sense of peace, authenticity, and memory.
Mhm. And that goes right back to our younger generations, certainly younger than me anyway, who are all searching for the experience now rather than spending money on things. It's for
Yes.
those memories, isn't it? So it all interconnects, interweaves, and really interesting what you were saying there about the story and how it helps to create these memories. There is the way the brain works is that it's less likely to remember data and facts, but more likely to remember a story. So if you said to somebody, "Oh, I stayed in this amazing place," if you have a good, strong story with that, they'll be able to tell you what that story is and about the place. But if you just were relying on maybe a brand that didn't have a very strong story or just data about the area, you're less likely to be remembered. So it's a really interesting little marketing thing there to wherever you can generate those stories. And can you think of an example of a hospitality brand that's doing regenerative tourism right, and maybe what others can learn from them?
Well, I think regenerative tourism itself is relatively new. It's to really build back is still, we're still on the sustainability track as a whole. Like there's only a small percentage that are sustainable, really regenerative. Playa Viva down in Mexico might be like, but like Six Senses is doing, like, they have a sustainability team. They are really putting, not, and it's not just like how they're building sustainability into their brand, but how they're they're putting it into their brand through other business aspects that I think is really valuable. I think there's Collective Retreats, who's a certified B Corp. So they're putting, what I like about B Corps is it's a bigger ecosystem than just environment. It's culture, it's workforce, and while you can plus or minus certifications like LEED certification or B Corps or things like that, it does give us some frameworks to strive for. So I think they are valuable and they're very hard to get, very expensive. And so for a corporation to say, we're going to do this, I think that's truly valuable. I, I'll say Terramore in the United States as well, because they're, lead goal. And I think that how we built Terramore and what they're doing there today is amazing. They're really, again, looking at the ecosystem of culture, community, environment, and the experience for the traveler, and how all of that, when thoughtfully operationalized, while still looking at the metrics, it still has to make money to be sustainable or else it won't be in business. When we truly look at all those things and optimize them thoughtfully, it builds something really beautiful.
Mm. So much of your work really does take into consideration that you're blending systems thinking with emotional intelligence. And that's going to be difficult for some teams and some leaders. So, especially if they are operating in a more strategic, linear way. So, what are the challenges there for trying to get people to think differently?
Well, one, I would say it kind of goes back into that idea of you have to be open to accepting change, and hopefully we present data and strategy in a way that helps bring to light that it's not just opinions. We can show actual data and ROI about how, when we build it thoughtfully and when we look at optimizing things that maybe strategically on paper didn't come to light or doesn't make sense, how we can make sense of it and show like the underlying value through either customer lifetime value or things, or repeat business or things like that. And I think too, when you really sit down, especially in the business of the outdoors, like when we really sit down and say, like, what makes things special in the outdoors? Why do people come outdoors? It's not a concrete pad. It's not, while Egyptian cotton is important potentially to get them there, there was the important piece, like where it is, how it is. We're just creating comfort in that experience. And I think if we can elevate again the data points, which potentially, I would say people just didn't have to make decisions on, when we can elevate the pieces of data that potentially haven't been realized or understood, that then people are given a chance to make the right decision. And if we can build that into a successful return on investment, healthy IRRs, if we can show that you can make the right choices, you can build in soul and make money, that's truly the value. And I think that's what gives people, goosebumps, is
Mm.
like, you can you can have both. We just have to try.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that was almost going to be the next thing that I asked you. Is it possible to have both? When people are looking for balance and profitability, but purpose as well. But you're just saying, yes, you can. You can have both. You just got to really know what it is you're dealing with and really, really dive into that information to understand what you need to focus on to get the best returns.
Right.
And I think that's
And
incredibly valuable.
it is. And I think that Sarah, you just said it. Like you just said it exactly right, is to Like, what is the best possible thing? And sometimes we get so, I'm a victim of this myself. We get so tied to our vision, our ideas, that are you going to let data potentially change them? And that's sometimes we come into friction with a lot because people don't want to know they're wrong, or that there's a hurdle, or maybe it's not the best avenue. And that's where it's like, we want to, that's why social media algorithms are so strong, is because it it's built to validate what we already like and what we already accept as the right answer. And technically we should be more open to, like, and comfortable with friction or alternative ideas. Have you looked at this? Do you think maybe you could do this instead? Or maybe yes, but not here. That's hard. And especially with, like, you know, you might be a lot of people coming into glamping are, taking their retirement savings and putting them into something. And so it's hard sometimes to really absorb the data, and make the choice. And so I think that's another component of it, is like, are we able to have our strategy change as well? Like, yes, it is possible if we're open to it. And I think that's just a philosophy of life. Anything's possible. We just have to be sometimes understand our path and take a little bit different direction than we thought it would.
Yeah, which I completely get is difficult at times, especially if someone's had a professional who's come in and they don't particularly know the background of this industry and really where its special, unique selling position is, and also where its nurturing position is in terms of nature, Mother Nature, and the customer and everything else. And they give advice on ROI and a return on investment and how they can expect a certain thing if they do a certain thing, and they're not taking into consideration all those little extra bits that you're illustrating there. And so then when you come in and you say, "Oh, maybe you need to think about this, and have you thought of that?" It's really difficult. It's like getting an oil tanker to turn, isn't it? They've already gone one direction and they're kind of that's the way they're going.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, simple things. I mean, it's as simple as those little things of, like, you want to put domes. Well, cool. I love domes. Love to stay in it. There's something about them that are so unique. But are you thinking about potentially that, most furniture is built for flat edges versus curved, and so there's potentially you have to buy a lot of custom things or have, false there's it's simple things. It's just understanding the complexity of our decisions. And it also just comes down to the data of it.
Absolutely. And if an area has, for example, really heavy snow load, then a dome is perfect because it's got those curved edges where
Right.
it falls off. So it's knowing your area, isn't it? That's what it comes
Yeah.
back to every time. If you know your area, you know the pros and cons, and you know all these different nuances which are specific to an area, you can make the best decision for that area, and not just follow what other people are doing because they're telling you that's where the profit lies, because that's not necessarily the case for a specific area.
Exactly. And always keeping that innovative spirit as well, because Apple, we didn't know we needed iPhones until we had an iPhone. So there's also kind of like, just by doing what everyone else does, you're not creating anything that special. It's good. It might, fit the ROI, but, like, can we expand what else, what other potentials can we highlight and build towards that opportunity? I think that's also one of the fun things of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking ahead, next 10 years, what do you hope the future of travel and hospitality looks like? And what do we need to do to get there?
I'm hopeful that the future of hospitality with everything we're capable of analyzing and building, that we, you know, become better students of where we're building and what we're building to, and understanding that, the we have ownership to the land that we're building on. If we really are proponents of the outdoors and the outdoor business, we need to build for that. And I'm not saying being perfect, I'm saying being intentional. And I think travelers will appreciate that. I think that storytelling will become, I think, as this Gen Z, which shows a lot of, very expressive and a lot of soul in what choices they make. I think as they become marketers, they start getting more into careers and the strategy of businesses. I'm really hopeful that I feel like they could be the generation that helps kind of right side hospitality at large, is like, no, we're not just going to tear down a bunch of forests to build a mega resort. Let's think about how we could do this differently and make better choices than just concrete, and how does it affect the culture and the community and the workforce. And for our our purpose right now, I think it's just accepting more data and understanding where we can make better choices today and hopefully build a better tomorrow.
And become champions of Mother Nature.
Yes.
Oh, it's just been such a pleasure to chat with you today. And where can people go to find out a little bit more about Walden Insights and what you do?
WaldenInsight.com is where you can go. And we, happy to talk to anyone globally. We have data sets across the globe and are equally fervent, from outdoor hospitality to recreation to conservation and sustainability.
Well, it's been a pleasure, as I said, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the Glamping show at the end of September, the beginning of October. So that's really exciting. Getting
Right
everything
around the
ready already.
corner.
I know. Can you believe it? Yeah, so we will definitely be getting our heads together there as well and talking much more about all of this, having soulful conversations about travel and the future of travel. And I can't thank you enough for what you shared with us today. Thank you so much, Whitney.
Yes. Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful day and evening wherever you are. Okay.
See you at the Glamping show. Bye.